Sure. I need the cushion. The booster seat? Good? All right. All right. Okay. We'd like to welcome you to our City Council meeting. Please be patient with me. It's the first time I've ever run a meeting, so hopefully we'll get through this. First, we'll have our opening by Councilmember Larry.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful that we could be here this night. We're thankful for the opportunity that we have to have a democracy and a representative government in this fine city. We're grateful for our city, for the valley and the mountains, the peaceful situation that we enjoy. We're grateful for all those who serve us here. And we ask you that would be with us, that we can make good decisions, that we'll be able to understand not only the topics but the hearts of the people. That we can make the decisions that would be most beneficial to the citizens of this fine city. We ask you that would be with us this night, and we pray for these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. All right, let's do the pledge. Okay. Will you join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. All right. First thing that we're going to do, if you got an agenda, you'll probably see that there are some changes. So I wanted to just walk through some of the changes that we are instituting. Obviously, there's a few new faces here behind the dais, and I'll set up a little bit differently. I bet you didn't notice that. So, and we've also made some changes to how we're going to get our work done. So shortly after I was elected, I started working with our council members and staff to try and find ways that we could be more efficient in the way that we use our time. And some of the things that we have come up with, first of all, we're going to be instituting a 10 p.m. stop time in our rules of procedure. Because we need our meetings to be consistent, concise, and really want people to focus in on what needs to be said and move along. Second thing we're introducing is a consent agenda. So on the consent agenda is things that are mostly administrative in nature, like minutes and the word is escaping me, minutes and appointments and calendar and things of that nature. And they will be passed together as a block. The third thing that we've done is we're going to a bifurcated meeting. So after we have our opening and our presentations and consent agenda, then what we do is we're going to have an action agenda and we're having a work agenda. So now in the action agenda, what we will do, these are items that have previously been vetted through our work session or are time sensitive. And so what will happen with that is that a staff member will present, and then we will open it up to a public comment period. So if before the council begins their deliberations, you have the opportunity to weigh in and tell your council members how you feel about that item. And after the public comment period, then we will have deliberations and voting on that issue. Now, and then the second part of that is our work agenda items. So this is a time when staff will make reports or will discuss items more in depth, and we will direct staff to prepare items to be presented as an action item at a later date after we have consensus by the council. It could be that items come through the work session multiple times before we find consensus. Another thing to know about that issue is, or the work agenda items, is we also have time limits on that. So look at the agenda, it'll say this issue 15 minutes. Hopefully we can get it done in less than that time, but we want to set the expectation that this is how much time we're going to spend. And this, when we go with a dedicated meeting, what this does is it gives residents at least 2 weeks to weigh in on items that are presented to council. So if something is presented in a work session, you have 2 weeks to contact your council and let them know how you feel. So I think it should be a very rare occasion that something is on the agenda that hasn't gone through the work session first, okay? And so finally, some changes to our public comment. As you might have noticed, we are moving our public comment time from the beginning of the meeting to the end so that you can weigh in on the work session items at the end of the meeting. I want to encourage you, though, our city council members have committed to respond to emails and phone calls within 48 hours. That is probably all of them. That way, you're covered by time limits and able to communicate fully your thoughts on issues. So, also, the first week that we've been using this agenda format, there's a few tweaks that I need to bring up. First of all, we are going to have, right after my comments, we're going to go to presentations, and we have Steve Rollins here to make a presentation. And second, declaration of conflicts of interest will not be on the consent agenda. It will be after the consent agenda, but before action items. All right, so that gives us where we're at right now. So let's have Mr. Steve Rollins. Is Steve Rollins here? Come on forward, sir. And Mr. Rollins is going to talk to us about the USA Softball Award recognition.
Thank you. We're here as representing USA Softball of Utah and the national office. Kaysville City this last summer hosted 2 national tournaments, and they were each rated 1 of 5 in the nation. And so they got the James Farrell Award of Excellence. And this is highly attributable to your recreation director, Chris Willie High. Chris, we'd like to present this award to Kaysville City, Chris Willie High. Thank you. And I must say, I'm pleasantly surprised that all you people came here to watch this.
Yeah. It is true. Thank you.
I'll just quickly say that we support the city supporting us in these events, and we appreciate USA Softball for helping in our success. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. All right. right. Okay, we're now going to move to our consent items. Now, Councilmember Adams, there's an item on here with which you have a conflict of interest. So you are excused, and we will call you back when this is over.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. All right. All right. Okay. So would anybody like to remove anything from the consent agenda? I would like to actually remove 3E from the consent agenda to speak to separately. Anybody else have anything they need to move? Okay. I will now entertain a motion to move the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second?
Yeah, second.
All right, it has been moved by Councilmember Garn and seconded by Councilmember Page. All in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you. I would like to just touch on the resolution. E, it has come to my attention that there is an error on that resolution. And if we go to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the sixth whereas, I would like...
Is our audio working?
You can't hear? Is it because I'm not speaking into the mic? Okay, better? All right. The sixth whereas, it says Dave Adams is a suspect in an investigation involving theft and extortion allegations. I believe it should just say extortion allegations. So we need to delete involving theft and from that. All right. Okay. I will now entertain a motion to pass this item. Yeah.
I move to adopt a resolution authorizing the City Council to censure Dave Adams, authorizing the mayor to issue a public letter of censure. Yes. I move to approve a resolution authorizing the City Council to censure Dave Adams, authorizing the mayor to issue a public letter of censure, and respectfully requesting that Mr. Adams resign from the City Council.
Do we have a second? I'm sorry, that's not part of our process. Do we have a second? I'm sorry, it's not part of our process. You can stay and talk to us. We would stay and talk to you as long as you would like after the meeting. Absolutely. All right. No. I am running this meeting. I'm sorry. There's no discussion on consent items. All right? And if you shout out, you'll be removed from the meeting. Okay? Whoever said that, you may leave or you will be removed. All right. Okay, let's take a vote. Let's start with Councilman Page.
Mayor Witt, I'm sorry. I don't think the motion's been seconded.
Oh,
Yeah,
did you?
I'll second that.
Sorry. Any discussion? Okay, let's vote.
Yeah, aye.
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 All right. The motion is adopted with 4-0. All right. Thank you. Can you have Councilman Adams return, please? Thank you. All right. We are next moving on to conflicts of interest. Do we have any conflicts of interest? None. Okay. Okay. Next, we are moving on to Adams. And Shane, you have rules of procedure change.
Yes, City Council, as Mayor Witt mentioned, there is a proposal which is action item 4A, which would alter the rules of procedure document to reflect that 10 p.m. Stoppage time, which she referenced in her opening remarks. This it gives the council the ability to continue after 10 p.m. when necessary, but it does require a majority vote of the council to do so. Otherwise, the meeting would end at 10 p.m. without that motion. I think it's on. It's in your packet. It's the highlighted portion, which is the addition. I think it's rule number 11. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you, Shane. So now we're going to public comment period, and we have Cheryl Tarbett, who signed up to speak to rules of procedure change. You have 3 minutes, and you need to speak to this item.
Okay, I wanted to talk about procedure.
To this specific item.
Okay, and I'd like to say on procedure, is it ethical? Is it ethical that the mayor and councilmen get together behind another councilman's back and decide and talk about
You are out of order.
Without talking to him and letting him answer the
You
questions?
are out of order. You need to speak directly to our rules of procedure talking about the ending time. So if you would like, you can comment on us ending our meetings by 10 p.m., and that is all.
Are you a dictator?
You may leave.
Okay, you are being a dictator.
You may leave.
And we deserve to be able to say what we would like to say about this, because
Right.
you did not give anybody an opportunity to comment.
All right, that's enough. You may go sit down. This is the procedure that we're using. I am sorry. You're out of order.
And
go
who
sit down.
decided on it?
We as a council decided. So you may go sit down. All right. And also, there's no clapping. There's no clapping allowed because it intimidates other people. So I did not tell you that. So we're all learning together. So no clapping because it makes it uncomfortable for people who are on the other side. All right, so now we will open for discussion on this rules of procedure change regarding the stop time of 10 p.m.
Mayor Witt,
Sir.
would it be next maybe clarifying questions?
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Sure. Any questions on this?
Maybe somewhat of a rhetorical question. Sorry, these mics do seem, you got to get right next to them, but if there is an item that's important and the council feels that we need more time, then we can take that action under these new rules. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Under the new rules, the meeting could extend past 10 p.m. as frequently as the council decided, but there would have to be a motion, a second, and a vote on that.
Thank you. That's all my questions.
Okay. Any other questions?
No.
Okay. I will motion.
I move that we adopt the new rules, rule number 11 for our. Now, is this mic?
It is, but you got to get close.
I'm so sorry.
No. Okay, let's try. Is that better? Yeah. All right, good. I move that we adopt Rule 11, the addition to our Kaysville City Rules of Procedure and Order.
I'll second the motion.
Good. It has been moved by Councilmember Larry Page, seconded by Councilmember Michelle Barber. Any other discussion? Okay, let's vote. Go ahead, Dave.
Councilmember Adams?
Councilmember Adams, yep.
Thank you, Chairman. Woman. Just on the grounds that I think it can stifle off critical issues for the people, I vote nay. Just on the grounds that I think it can stifle off critical issues that people may, be battling that particular night, it's a nay for me.
Aye.
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 Motion passes 4-1. All right. Okay. Okay, now we're moving on to 4B, a resolution for the appointment of Katie Witt to the Wasatch Integrated Board representing Kaysville City. And we don't have anybody signed up for the public comment for this. But first, we need to turn the time over to Shane.
City Council, with the vacation of the mayor's seat from Mayor Steve Hyatt to Mayor Katie Witt, this resolution becomes necessary to appoint somebody from our city to fill the Wasatch Integrated Board seat. This has traditionally been the mayor in Kaysville. It doesn't have to be. If there's other discussions that can take place, Mayor Witt has expressed an interest, or at least a willingness to do this. And I think most of those board appointments are mayors from their respective cities, but again, it doesn't have to be that way. But this resolution does need to be adopted by resolution, that appointment.
Okay. All right. Any questions, Council? No questions? Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 18-1-1, appointing Mayor Katie Witt as a member to the Administrative Control Board of the Wasatch Integrated Waste Management District.
You have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. All right. Any more comments? Okay. Let's vote. Let's start with Michelle.
Aye.
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 Thank you. All right. Let's move on to the next. Let's do action item C, a resolution to adopt the 2018 net metering agreement, Resolution 18-1-3. Shane?
I'm going to wear out the carpet over here. Mayor, with your permission, I'd like to address both C and D in maybe just one short report. Although we would like these addressed separately, as one is a resolution, one is an ordinance. As all of you are aware, at the last meeting, we made some changes to both our rate schedule as well as the solar rates that we will charge future net metering customers. While the majority of those decisions were made at the last meeting, we still, as administrative issue, maybe kind of I call it a cleanup issue, we still need to adopt the agreement and the policy that would be in effect as of January 1st, once those grandfathered customers have been as that time has elapsed. So we do need a new net metering agreement and a new net metering policy, and that's what these two documents are. So I feel like it's been unclear. Hopefully that's a little bit more clear, but if you have obviously questions, I'm here to answer those, as well as we have several staff members from the power department as well.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. We don't have anybody signed up for public comment on this. Any questions from council? Okay. Okay, none? All right. I will entertain a motion for the first item, a resolution to adopt the 2018 net metering agreement.
Yeah, I'll move that we adopt the 2018 net metering agreement, Resolution 18-1-3.
The motion.
Thank you. All right. Any further discussion? No? All right, let's vote. Councilman Garn?
Aye.
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 Just to be congruent, it's a nay. It's congruence with my last vote, that's all.
Aye.
All right. And that passes 4-1. Okay. All right. And I will also entertain a motion on an ordinance to amend the city net metering policy.
Well, I'll move to that we amend the ordinance for Kaysville City net metering policy, Ordinance 18-1-1.
Thank you.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. All right. Any other comments? Okay.
I did have one comment on this.
Right.
Especially where this was previously worked on by the past council. I made sure to familiarize myself with the policy quite a bit, and I know there's still some questions on it. And I'm familiar with the policy. I'm comfortable passing this policy as it is, but I would welcome continued input from the residents that it's a working policy that we can continue to adjust and make amends as needed.
Well done. All right. Okay. Shall we vote? Let's start with Larry.
Yeah, aye.
Aye.
Based on what Michelle says, I'll agree to that. Aye.
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 Okay. That passes 5-0. Okay. All right. Next. So next we're moving into our work items. So work item A is substation technician job description. Gary Hatch.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. I'd like to close with just a brief description of what was included in your packet. This is a substation technician description. It is an individual with the training, education, experience in substations. This is a specific field that requires 4 years of education and training to become certified as a substation technician. This is completely different from a journeyman, so it's totally separate field than a journeyman lineman. It's a specific pertaining just specifically to substations. In your packet, the job description of the included some typical job duties that the individual is going to do. Those testing of equipment and all the readings and everything else will happen every month. So it's a ongoing process that we continue to evaluate, improve, address where we need to improve in substations. So his job would be basically taking care of all the substations and upgrades and maintenance and everything else as indicated in the job description. And just so it is very important that we maintain, upgrade, and improve our substations. As the city continues to grow, this individual will be involved in giving input and recommendation on future upgrades and capacity of our substations. After reviewing multiple utilities that are surrounding us, we have reviewed them and believe it is time for us to take a step forward into getting a sub-tech that will be here full-time, that we can get them and contact them anytime, day and night, so they'll be able to come in and help us when needed. And also help in our daily activities too that we need sub-tech for. That is kind of a brief description of that. I would like to also mention too is that we have been proactive, so we did budget for this position this year. It's in this year's budget, so we do have the funds for it. And we do need to improve in this area. It is something that we need to improve in, and that's basically my report.
And Gary, now, it's probably in the information, but this has already been budgeted for, correct?
Correct.
All right. All right. So we already budgeted, so it's not an additional expense.
For the personnel, yes.
Correct.
Now,
okay.
the equipment and materials and testing equipment, I'm aware of exactly how much that is going to cost, but I do have some funds that we can at least move forward and see where we need to be with that, with his knowledge of what he needs to have. That's what I was kind of holding back on that, to see exactly what is required on his end.
Mm-hmm. So. Okay. All right. Questions?
Yeah, Gary, what has Kaysville done in the past not having one of these technicians on staff?
In the past, we have contracted with, it's called substation specialists, It was one individual that would come in and do some testing. He would not be a person that we would be able to call on overtime or anything like that. He'd just come in and do our testing and fill out our reports. Since he's passed, we have now reached out to other to see if they're willing to help us in emergency situations and also to help us in areas that we need help in. We have come to find out that it is getting very difficult to schedule with them because we have to pull them away from their daily duties too. It's getting difficult to arrange time to do what we need to do, and we believe it is time now that it's time to move forward.
I appreciate it. Just a follow-up question. There's other cities that have their own power companies, for example, like Bountiful and Lehigh and some of these other ones. Do they have them on staff, or do they sub them out kind of like we've done in the past?
They have multiple sub-technicians on staff full-time.
Wow. Okay. I just a comment that goes along with this. I do know when we had that accident that caused that the power failure, I know that was one of the big causes, because I guess it didn't mess up the substations. What happened, and we had a secondary. The very next week we had another power, and I think it was related directly to the substation. Is that correct?
Very possibly could be related to the accident that occurred that took down our power lines, yes.
Yeah.
That is, as everybody is aware, it took some time to figure out what was going on, and we believe once we were able to contact an individual on the phone, he kind of walked us through us, and then that's when we decided, well, we need to do something else. But yes, we had an individual that we were able to call and say, please come in and help us, and I believe it could have cut down the outage time a little bit just for his knowledge of substations.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I ask a question? Just the size of, I know other cities have these technicians. What's their size of the grid compared to ours? Like, let's take Bountiful, closest in size.
Their size is about half ours.
Really?
Yeah, we're about half of theirs. They have roughly the same amount of substations, but their system is half.
Okay, but they have multiple techs with that size of system.
Yes.
Okay.
I have made a mistake. When I'm supposed to actually recognize you before you speak. I'm sorry. So I'll get used to this. Any other questions? Somebody? Councilmember Garn.
I'll defer.
Councilmember Barber.
Thank you. Gary, I'm just wondering, have you seen an analysis of what we're paying right now to contract for it versus the cost of the full-time employee?
Right now, the contract, I don't have a contract with them. It's been about a year or so since we used that contract, so we do not have on hand updated data for that. When the utilities come and help us, it's more of a you help us, we help you type thing.
Okay.
So we're, like I mentioned before, it's getting very difficult to get them here on a continuous basis to help us out. So
I think we could certainly pull that up before the next meeting, though, and see what we have spent in the past. But I think I would also reiterate that I don't think this is going to be a cost-saving measure as much as it is we hope to be a lot more proactive in the way that we respond to. I think Councilmember Page brought up the last incident, which took us, not the first outage, but the second one that was on Sunday, took us much, much longer than it should have to diagnose the problem in the substation. And I think with the sub-tech on board, it would have been it would have gone a lot smoother. That doesn't cure all the city's ills, but since this was also something that Gary's been thinking about for some time, I thought it was appropriate that we start talking about that. And we want you to know this is a new position in the city. We don't want to ever hire a new position without the council being okay with that and approving of the job description as presented.
Councilman Garn.
I don't expect you. I was actually, Councilmember Barber's question was the question I was going to ask, but it made me think of another one when we were mentioning this isn't a cost saving from a budget standpoint, but I don't expect you on the spot to estimate the cost of power outages or substations that fail because they're not being monitored correctly, but would there be a cost not only to the city of those repairs that maybe could have been prevented through proper maintenance by having a substation tech, and also the cost to the citizens of having power outages that could have been prevented?
Yes.
I don't expect you to come up with a number on the spot here.
On the spot, just the two that I can recall that happened recently. We've had, like Councilmember Page indicated, this up here in the east sub, and then we did have a relay go bad on us down in the west sub about 4 or 5 months ago. That just went bad on us, but it took us some time to get somebody up here to help us out with programming and make sure our settings are correct and everything else like that. So those are the two I'm aware of recently. Both of them are accidents, not due to maintenance, but maintenance is to help prevent the accidents and stuff like that. So it's in the job description, it goes quite in depth of more testing that will be done than what we are doing now. Since he is specialized in that field, and he understands what buttons he can push and not push, basically.
Thank you, and thank you, Mayor.
Great. Any additional comments, questions? All right, I think the direction that staff is looking for is they would like to have direction to start the hiring process, if anybody would like to make that motion.
Mayor,
Yes?
I'm sorry, just to clarify, I think what we would probably prefer is to have this move to action. If you feel like it's been properly vetted, we can get Councilman Barber's information just for the next time. But I think once the job description is accepted, we would say that's when we'll go ahead and start the hiring process.
Okay, so a motion to move it to the action agenda for next time.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, let's start with Councilmember Hanson.
Sorry, I missed. Do we know the gross cost of this employee? Was that stated?
I do not know the gross cost.
Not yet.
But next week we're going to find what we've been paying versus what this estimated cost is.
Right. Well, that could be a little bit tricky because the company that we hired, he was not here full time. It was just
absolutely
just a day here and there. So
we can pull up what we paid that individual, as well as even previous years with the company that we also consulted with, and then we certainly can give you a range of hiring and what, with benefits and everything, what that would cost.
And I would assume the range includes what's estimated in the budget as well. What's estimated in the budget for this?
Yeah, that's I don't know, Gary, what that process was when you previously included in the budget, but I assume Dean does that very well. So Gary would say, "I want to include this in my budget," and Dean would do that. So
maybe just a clarification that position, as Gary mentioned, is included in the budget, and it has been classified as part of the compensation plan at a grade equivalent to a journeyman lineman.
Thank you, Dean.
Okay. Thanks for the clarification. Thank you, Chairman, Chairwoman. Sorry, I'm still getting used to that.
I don't mind.
Creature Howard. Aye.
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 Okay, that passes 5-0. All right. Okay, next we are going to have a discussion talking about fiber consultation recommendation. Ryan.
I'm going to have Dean start us off with that.
That sounds great.
Can I ask you just to speak in the microphone pretty closely? I'm so sorry. Hard to hear.
Thank you, Mayor. We would like to combine the next two items together if we can, the AMI system and the fiber optic system.
That sounds
we
great.
think they're related enough to have that discussion together. Over the last year and a half or so, we have been exploring and investigating an AMI system, which means automated meter infrastructure. And this is a system that would replace our current meter reading system. But it's other than that. It provides two-way communication on the meters. It provides real-time data for meters, provides opportunities to have automatic readings real-time. So it has some real advantages for the meter reading system. But probably more importantly is the advantages to the power department in regards to load balancing, in regard notification of meter outages. So if someone's meter stops working, the power department will be notified immediately that there's an outage. There's a process they can go through to see if it's an isolated incident or affects more than one. So there's some real advantages to the power department to do this. In addition to that, the Power Commission has recommended a time of use rate, as you heard last month or two, and so at our last meeting we adopted a rate in preparation for time of use, and an AMI system, once it's fully operational, would provide us time of use to follow that recommendation from the Power Commission. Related to that is the fiber optic system, the connection between city substations. Of course, huge benefits there. Ryan's the guy that knows everything and has done most of the work on this, so I'm going to kind of turn the time over to Ryan to explain any additional details or questions you might have on this. Thank you.
Okay, so I don't know where we start. The AMI system. So the AMI system is something that we've been looking at for quite a while. We started looking at this a year and a half ago when council directed us to look in that direction. And at that time, council requested that we look at bonding the water and the power AMI system together in one. And so we've been investigating that and looking at that. And although it is possible, we've come to the conclusion that it's not really feasible within our city. The water and the power are just too diversified, and so what we recommend is moving towards two separate systems: an AMI system for the water and an AMI system for the power separately. And we would recommend going with Eaton Power, who when we went to RFP, came up with the lowest. Well, it wasn't the lowest, but it was the best value bid, and there was some ups and downs on either side. I think it's a give and take kind of thing, but as we evaluated 4 different products, we were most comfortable with the software and hardware side of how Eaton works. Their system is hardware agnostic, and which means that you can pretty much use any kind of meter in their system, from various vendors, and that's really important as we go forward, because if we don't want to get stuck using one particular meter and then have to purchase that if we have problems in the future over and over again, just because we've bought into a system that you only are locked into one type of manufacturer. So Eaton provides the ability for us to pick from many different vendors and then bring that into the AMI system. And so those meters, whether they're Elster or Lansing-Gear or whatever meter they are, they'll all integrate and work with the Eaton Yukon system. And so that's the recommendation, is to move in that direction. It's a similar system to what Provo is currently using, and we've visited with them several times and are quite impressed with what they have. So That's what we're going to want to move forward on. Is there any comment on the AMI system? Does everybody know what?
I have a question
Councilmember Barber?
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
I have a question about implementation, what residents can expect. I am getting a little bit confused with what I saw from Public Works on the water metering system, how those are going to be phased out. So can you speak?
Okay, so the way that this will work is, currently we have an AMR system. AMR is, they're just a radio read, and they drive around and read the meters. They're 900 megahertz, and so the only time that the meters get read are when we drive around and read them once a month. With the AMI, they will be read via just like a kind of an access point, right? That reads all the meters, and those meters talk together in a mesh network, and they read. So once we purchase the main parts of the metering system and we install those collector points, we can start rolling out new meters right away, and at that you'll have kind of a dual system. You'll be reading some of the city and with AMR and some of the city with AMI, and then eventually all meters will be replaced, and then you'll just be reading real time with the AMI.
I think the other note, I don't know if this is a question though. The other question, residents would be interested of the monitoring, that they can self-monitor and they can be updated on their power on their own. I already looked into the app that it's actually not provided by Eaton. It's a partnered app that they can use. So obviously I think there would be a lot of interest in residents getting these and phasing them out.
We did look at that. That is actually not a part of this. It is an extra cost, significant extra cost. And so I think that in our discussions with Idaho Falls and Provo Power, they had a very small fraction of people that actually signed up to utilize that particular portal where a customer can log in and access their data. So I would think that looking at this more conservatively, we would probably want to launch the system without that portal initially, and then budget for it in the future as the system becomes mature.
You could probably expect cost to go down as well, so keep an eye on it.
Yeah.
Councilmember Garn.
So follow up to Councilmember Barber's question. These meters that just relay the data to the city, but not to individual homeowners for their smart appliances or whatever to monitor their power usage, would that be, so what's entailed in the add-on? Do you have to actually replace all the meters again, or would you be able to just upgrade the performance of the existing?
No, the add-on. So basically, what happens is all the meters they're collecting data and they're passing it along until it hits a server, and that server is called an MDM, meter data management something. Anyway. And so what you do is you stand up a server that's a portal that talks to that server, and then customers can log into that portal and access that data. So it's not something that we replace hardware in the field in. It just becomes a software solution.
That makes sense. Thank you. That's all my questions, Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead.
Councilmember Hanson.
So you mentioned this earlier, but the main purpose for this is, I don't know if it's the main purpose, but it's to help with measure of use. Is that the main reason we're going to this system?
That's one of the reasons. There's a lot of different reasons and a lot of benefits to AMI. Of course, we've passed the rate structure, and most certainly it will accommodate that. But when we have issues like power outages and things like that, right now the only way that the power department knows that there's a power outage is by people calling in and saying, I have a power outage. Well, with an AMI system, those meters are always talking to the server. And so we can get real-time alerts on when those meters are out. So more than likely, we would know long before we started getting phone calls that there was a power outage. And so that's, we can get on on a repair or on a fix long before even customers know that they were out, if that makes sense. But there's also telemetry that can be integrated, and SCADA, where they can do automation and controls through the AMI system. AMI system is like a network. It's just things communicating with other things, and so once you get the backbone set up, then there's a whole bunch of other things you can do with it, and we're just really scratching the surface when we talk about its capabilities, especially when it comes to like reading meters. That's the small piece of it. Yeah.
Can I ask a second question about the costs? So you said just overall the best value, just the software hardware is one time, like the 243 I'm looking at.
So the costs here are they're kind of a place to start. We really need to sit down and negotiate because with the vendor. But this is where it would start. It'd probably go down from here is what I'm thinking. Maybe not. They're here and they might think different. But yeah. So we have software and hardware costs, and those are fixed costs. They will be they'll be our initial startup cost, and then you'll have the reoccurring costs for like software maintenance and things like that. And then there's the meter cost, and so you're going to have a meter cost to replace the existing meters, so the existing meters with AMI meters. And that's really where the bulk of the cost of this project is. And you have to take into consideration that this is this is going to be a 2-year project. So it's not $1.5 million right out the door, but it's spread out over a couple of years. Yeah.
And have we budgeted for that?
Yes, there is budget amount. I'm not privy of all those details, but Dean could probably speak to that.
That's a yes, Dean?
Yes, it's a yes.
That's all I have.
Okay.
Yeah, just a question.
Councilmember Page.
Yeah, Ryan, a lot of times there's always needs and wants, I guess, and I always feel better if we're going into something to make sure that that is needed by the city, and especially when it comes to technology, and B, that it's cost effective. I mean, can you tell us that? I mean, have you done that cost analysis and you feel good about that we invest this money? I mean, it sounds like to me it's going to be a lot better service for the people, and I guess there's a price to that, and a benefit, a huge benefit. But does it make the city more efficient to have this in place, and will it benefit the citizens? And I guess one of the questions I have, I know you've been evaluating this, is other cities latching on to these kind of things and these services, or are they still with the old dinosaur way, or how does that work?
Yeah, every utility that I've talked to is moving this direction. Yeah, this is the future, and honestly, technology. Every time we turn around, you got a new iPad model, right? So It's the same exact thing in this technology when we're talking about AMI systems. It's moving rapidly. So in 15 years, it'll look much different than it does today, and that's why I think. Well, that's why we felt that going with a product that's more agnostic to hardware will allow us to be more flexible in the future. And the product, like your first question was about what was it? Your first question was about efficiency.
Yeah.
It's going to definitely provide more efficiencies for the employees in some respects. But kind of what I see happening is you have certain responsibilities and jobs that happen with the current AMR system, like a meter reader, right? They go around and that's all they do. They read meters. Well, that job's going to morph into something else. There's going to be other responsibilities managing how those meters get deployed and maintained, and make sure they're connected to the network. So there's going to be some efficiencies in the way that our customers see the things, but see our job. We do things, especially when it comes to like meter reading and solving billing and billing problems. But there'll be more of a shift in type workload, so it'll be more technical on the technical side. So if that makes sense.
Councilman Adams, do you have any questions?
No.
Okay, can you put your phone down, please?
It's the agenda, Madam Chairman.
All right. You have an iPad, right?
It's not linked to the internet. Okay. Could I ask, is there a rule against using my cell phone for the agenda?
Is there? Okay.
I don't think so.
I don't know.
Do you want to zoom in on it?
That's good.
Okay.
All right. I just assumed you had an iPad. I'm sorry.
I do not have a city-sponsored one. I declined that expense. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Mayor?
Yes. Councilman Kern.
Would it be all right if I made just one more brief comment
Yes.
on this and maybe just confirm my understanding? I don't have numbers, and I'm certainly not an expert, but as I've read a couple of books on the future of power, the thing I find interesting, if it's okay at this point to make a comment, the most expensive part of power is the infrastructure for peak capacity. So the ability to produce, because it always has to be in balance, the system usage and production. And so the peak capacity is where you spend your money. It's almost like you've got to have 20 firemen on duty. There may not always be a fire or an emergency, but when there is, you might need all 20 people to respond. You may actually not have enough people. Well, that's sort of the way the power infrastructure works. So why this in the future is so important, and it needs to go there if you believe in economic theory, is that that cost of peak capacity is as you are able to monitor power usage and even have smart appliances in homes or even people manually saying, hey, I know the peak rate is at such and such a time, and I'm not going to be there that day or whatever, or maybe I can afford to have in the summer, the air conditioning a little bit lower. And it's similar to water metering, too, that eventually I think all the secondary water will be metered because there will be more and more demand. There won't be enough supply. So the cost has to go up. And so you have to meter it and install meters at that point, unfortunately. But there is an incentive there for myself and every other family to try to conserve. And maybe, my secondary water, if it's unmetered, I just use as much as I want, maybe because I'm trying to be conscientious citizen, I only water at night and I water only on odd days or whatever. But there's an added economic incentive to conserve. And so to bring in my point that when we look at these decisions, as important as it is to look at the budget, it's also important to look at the impact of our policy on expenses generally to our citizens. And if we have to keep providing peak capacity, we're not able to move forward with some of these new technologies, the cost to citizens is going to be much higher in the rate structure and everything else. So I think it's almost like resisting this change in the industry almost ensures that the advantage that Kaysville citizens have with a little lower rate will evaporate at some point if we don't keep up. And then we will sell the power equipment to Rocky Mountain or whatever their name is now and let them take over because they will have invested in the new technologies.
Yeah, without question, AMI system will allow better visibility into how someone uses their power. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay, so just for my own understanding, what are we looking for?
Sorry?
You want to shift to the fiber discussion?
Yeah. May I make a quick comment about the AMI? Maybe we could just put that to bed before we go to the fiber. We recognize that that from the staff perspective, we've been working on this for before I even arrived. So, and we recognize that many of you are new, and this is a new concept to you. Ryan will be presenting the AMI recommendation to go with the Eaton system to the Power Commission next week at their regularly scheduled meeting, and we'll look to them for a recommendation as well, which I hope will carry a little bit more weight with this body in addition to what the staff is recommending. So if there's information that we can provide over the next 2 weeks, we're ready to proceed with this, and we would love to see this on the agenda for action at the next meeting, but we recognize that this is a big number. It's a lot of money, and we want to move at your pace. So if there's other information that we can provide, please allow us the opportunity to do that.
Can I ask a question? Absolutely. So my question is, what exactly are you taking to the Power Commission? Is there additional information that will come from the provider?
It's similar information. They have been involved in this process much longer than for sure you, Councilmember Barber, but they were invited to come to the presentations when each of these vendors presented. I think one or two of them was able to make it to that. So they're kind of bit further along than you are. Of course, this is what they do. They know much more about AMI than I'll ever dream of knowing. So it's going to be easier for them to be able to vet our recommendation, I think, and maybe they can ask questions that I wouldn't dream of. And so I guess what I'm just trying to say is that we have them there for a reason. I think there will be a real tremendous with this. That doesn't mean that we have to go with their recommendation, and of course, ultimately, it is your decision to make. But I'm hopeful that will give you at least some peace of mind, as haven't been able to address this a lot with you, and we don't have to address it at the 18th either. But I'm just telling you that from the staff perspective, we've done a lot of work to go, and if there's anything we can do to give you a comfort level on this, we'd be happy to do that.
I just would like to have another work session after we hear back from the Power Commission and the information from this provider. Then we can work on it again. With that information, there could be public comment for it, and then we'd have the action item.
Okay. Would you like to make that as a motion?
Yes. I would motion that we would move this item back to work session for the next council meeting.
Second the motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any additional comments? All right, let's vote. Let's start with you, Councilman Hanson.
Can I make one comment?
Yes, go ahead.
Just question.
Sure.
This, and just for the next meeting, I'd like to know the useful life of each of the meters. I don't know if you know, but that can wait till then.
Okay, that's fine.
But just something I'd like to know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Good.
And with that,
you may vote.
Aye.
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 All right, passes 5-0 to go on to the next study agenda. All right, and then we need to the fiber.
All right, so the reason why we kind of introduced fiber and the AMI system kind of together was because the AMI system really depends upon good data connectivity, and the place that we're most efficient in the city right now is at our substations. Data connectivity, our substations is limited. And so what we would like to do is run fiber to those substations in a ring configuration so that we can have good data communications at each one of those substations. Currently we have video surveillance at the substations. We would like to improve that in the future. We also have data needs there for meter reading at the substation, and then with the AMI on top of that, it'll be something that we really will need in the future as we move to the AMI system. It is a separate project, so that's why we've separated it out. We have put out an RFP for this fiber project. We had four submissions. Of those 4 submissions, we interviewed all of them at one point or time or the other. Connext was the most interesting to us. As we looked at this, they were very flexible in what they could actually provide for us. So the RFP basically is that we were looking for someone to install the fiber, maintain the fiber, and also provide services over that fiber. And so what we would like to have is the fiber optics running to each substation being dark, and we would configure that so that it was all in a ring configuration with a VLAN and all the fancy stuff behind it, but to make it secure. But we would also utilize that dark fiber to bring internet connection, a better internet connection to the city. So that's kind of our proposal that we would like to. I don't know. Do you have any questions?
Councilman Garn.
Yeah, we got this a little late, so I'm happy to have it delayed one more work session as well to answer more questions. But
there's a map, isn't there?
You just said something that is very interesting to me, and I thought, oh, maybe I'll ask this question, but it's probably not. This is probably just for the city. But you said also this provides possibly fiber internet connections for the city. Do you mean for the city itself? Just this, or do you mean for the residents of the city as well?
So this project is specifically for the city, Kaysville City, but it could have far-reaching impacts. What we were hoping to do is have a flexibility for the future. We want to leverage our investment in the fiber. We need the connections to the substations, but we want to leverage that investment so that we can have other options. And so, in essence, we would install like 48 fibers to each substation, and obviously we don't need 48 fiber substations, but the cost to install 12 versus 48 is so minimal that it just doesn't make any sense to not install 48 strands. So the 48 strands to each substation would be there. A part of this would we would the maintenance that is provided on this fiber, we don't have the ability to maintain it in house. So we would have a third party maintain it. That third party would maintain it and provide services over that. Now they would provide services to the city, but it doesn't mean they couldn't provide services to others also over the fiber.
So just a follow-up question. So is it possible with those extra substations that whoever that provider is would have sort of an open network type thing where they could lease to, say, other providers, and potentially at some point there could be a competitive situation where various competing fiber providers could utilize those substations and then provide services to residents?
Yeah, not necessarily. Yeah, yes. The answer is yes. I don't want to go too far down that road because there's a lot of. It's not necessarily in the scope of what we're talking about here, but
not germane, right?
Yeah.
Right, but it wouldn't hurt. I mean, it could eventually.
Yes, potentially the city.
Set too high expectations. But.
Yes, you could have an open network over that extra dark fiber. Yes.
Thank you.
Councilman Adams.
So, what is the cost difference from going from 12 to 48 fibers? Then you mentioned. It seems like you know it. What is it?
I don't know it right off the top of my head, but I could definitely find out. It was pennies per foot is what it was difference.
Okay. Are we thinking long term down the road of segueing in to have our own fiber company?
No.
Jake's kind of touched upon that.
I personally would not want that. I don't think that that's the best way to do that. And I think that there's some laws that prevent us from being our own internet service provider. Does that make sense?
Let me rephrase. Are we thinking down the road then of bringing fiber to Kaysville City? Is this kind of a doorway to that?
Yes, absolutely.
Councilmember Barber.
So I've been really excited about this, and Ryan and Shane have been really great to fill me in, and it helped me to kind of understand the role of the city versus how it will be laid out to residents. So Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, but the city is already interested in having a fiber network for itself to support the substations, to support AMIs, to just let the city run as a whole. And then And looking at it, they're realizing if we make this ring, and there's, oh, there it is, this ring available in the city that's already there, another company, whether it's the company that installed that ring or another company, could come in and make that available as a business and a service to residents.
That's correct.
And so I feel like it's in investigating it, because a lot of us who are from this area have heard similar or bordering cities or areas that have had different experiences with fiber, and so it makes us all a little bit hesitant. But I feel like the role of the city being, as we all have the infrastructure, but we have a third party who provides the fiber. It's not the city providing it, we're allowing this company to come in and do it. The contract is from the third party and the resident. There's no requirement. We let any other internet providers come in, but we have one fiber available for all the residents. And when we did actually look at the cost of the 24 versus 48, and it was quite a nominal cost, so I didn't feel like the city was really investing into this infrastructure over what would be appropriate for maintaining ourselves, but also providing a really great benefit to residents and businesses that they can have internet speeds our industry demands right now.
And we probably need to focus more strictly on what this is. I don't want people to get excited about something that is a little bit further down the road. So, but so
I will just say this: that yes, I mean, having this ring in here won't just benefit Kaysville City Power. Immediately, it will, but there are pretty major possibilities for the future with it. Yes.
So it is further down the road, Chairwoman?
Yes.
Coming?
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
Off topic here.
It's a little off topic. It's a little down the road, a piece.
Appreciate your gratuity in letting Councilmember Garn go off topic there. Hopefully
You know,
the future
I'm
will
still learning.
catch those.
I am still learning, and I'll try to be better. Anybody else? Okay.
Can I ask a
Of
question?
course.
Just sheer safety, and I'm thinking about like an internet in the way it was originally. A grid like this, circular, if it's cut any place, is it all down, or is it not designed that way?
Yeah, this is in a ring configuration, so I mean, if it's built for redundancy. If there's a break, then the traffic just travels the other direction.
Okay, so it can. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, Council, what do you want to do?
Well, just a question to that, if I may.
Yes.
So these are work items,
Right.
and so we really would not take any action on them tonight, but
So-
we could move them to delay
Correct.
it like the other one on the meters, or we could...
A couple of options that you would have. You would have the option to put it onto another work session, or you could direct staff to prepare it to go on an action item. How do you feel? Do you feel like you have enough information, Councilmember Garn?
Speaking for myself, yes, I do. So I would make a motion to move it to the action item list for the next council meeting.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay.
I do have a comment. Is this the proper time?
Yes.
So I'm a little unclear from staff what you're looking for. Are you looking for, would our action item be to, yes, continue to pursue this fiber optic contract? You've mentioned that you have one provider already in mind, the Connext, which that's not germane, but
Yes, the action item would be probably, we would want to award the contract to Connext.
I do feel like there could have been, it seemed like there was limited information in the packet comparing the different providers and why Connext was the better option. Price is one component, which is in the packet, but there were others, and as well as what the contract would exactly entail. So I would like to see more information on that provided in the packet, and I know we have it available, like even this map and things like that. Put that in the packet and bring it back as a work session next week.
So we have a motion currently on the floor to put it as an action item for the 18th. So you are asking for a substitute motion. Okay. So
I would make a substitute motion that we would request more information from staff comparing all of the businesses we looked out to and the contract that we would be engaging with Connext, if that's who it was.
And
I'll second.
Okay. All right. It's moved and seconded. Any other comments at this point? No. All right. Let's start with a vote. Councilman Adams.
Aye.
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 Okay. Motion passes 5-0. All right. Where are we? Okay. I believe we're at Capital Facilities Impact Fee Analysis with Dean Story.
Thank you, Mayor. The 2018 budget includes an impact fee facilities plan and impact fee analysis study to be conducted this fiscal year. We've been planning on this, and I'm sorry. Let me just explain what an IFFP is and what an IFA is. As you know, impact fees are charged to new construction as it comes into the city. So as new construction comes in, there's an impact fee charged for the impact that new construction has on city facilities. There are two parts to this study. There's the IFFP and the IFA. The IFFP, the Impact Fee Facilities Plan, identifies the capital projects that qualify to be funded or partially funded by the collection of impact fees. There are some pretty strict requirements on performing an IFFP according to Utah Code, and before you can assess impact fees, an impact fee facilities plan study has to be conducted. There are certain elements that need to be part of that study. First of all, there needs to be an existing and proposed level of service. So, for example, you would look at your water facilities and say how much storage do we need per resident, or how much storage do we need per equivalent residential unit, and that becomes the level of service. So, as new development comes in, you have to measure what kind of impact that will have on your current level of service and what facilities are needed to meet that level of service, if that makes sense. You also have to identify excess capacity as part of your facilities. For example, again, using the example of water, you may have so many million gallons of water storage, and you may have excess capacity than what's needed. So that has to be part of the equivalent, or part of the consideration, and then you have to measure the demands placed on existing public facilities. So you have to go through and perform this facilities plan study before impact fees can be assessed. So our recommendation as part of the budget is to do the study for city facilities, including water, electrical, public safety, roadway, parks, and recreation. So after the facilities plan is conducted, you do an impact fee analysis, and the impact fee analysis determines the appropriate amount of impact fees to be charged by establishing an impact fee schedule and formulas for calculating the impact fees. So the IFFP and the IFA not only need to be accurate, they need to be defensible, and new construction provides an impact. Our last study was held in 2012, and it's recommended that a study is conducted every 5 to 6 years. So we're on schedule to perform this study. Our recommendation is that we go back to the 2012 studies and update the studies based on data that was provided in 2012, which means that we would suggest that we use some of professional services that we've used in the past. For example, on water, we recommend the IFFP study be done by JUB engineers. For roadway improvements, we recommend Horrocks Engineers. They were the firms that did the previous studies. Parks and Recreation, Public Safety, we recommend Lewis, Young, Robertson, and Birmingham. And Power is yet to be determined on who we would have do that IFFP. The impact fee analysis for each one of these studies we recommend to be done by Lewis, Young, Robertson, and Birmingham. So we've requested proposals for professional services as follows. JUB Engineers for the water in an amount of $29,600, and Horrocks Engineers for transportation in the amount of $30,254. Now, in the case of water and roadway, we've requested that additional services be performed. So instead of just an IFFP, we're also looking for a capital facilities plan, which is different. An IFFP identifies projects which are eligible for impact fees. Capital facilities plan includes projects that may or may not be eligible for impact fees. But it would give us a pretty good idea over the next several years what facilities need to be constructed in Kaysville in all these areas. And then finally, Lewis, Young, Robertson, and Birmingham to do the IFFP for Parks and Recreation and Public Safety, and then perform the IFA for all components in the amount of $37,950. As this was included in the budget, we didn't budget quite this much, but we feel like we've added some additional services that are necessary for water and transportation. So if you, at some point, we'll need to amend the budget to accommodate these aligned.
Okay. And just so council knows, while they're asking their questions, what action are you hoping to get tonight on this?
We'd like to move this to an action item for next week, or 2 weeks.
All right. Questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Councilmember Page.
Yeah, Dean, attending, I know this is a touchy subject, and there's been some court cases recently where they've forced cities to pay back impact fees, to especially developers and home builders and things of this nature. And one of the reasons is because the cities were not doing evaluations, and who knows why, but when those evaluations were done, they found out that they were receiving probably more impact fees than probably what they should have. Is there state laws that govern these kind of things?
Absolutely, yes. And in fact, that's why it's required to have an impact fee facilities plan before you assess impact fees of any kind. And we recommend that a professional consulting firm do that study so it becomes not only accurate, as I mentioned, but defensible. So if developers come back to the city, we've got defensible impact fees and what amount is charged.
Just another question, follow-up.
Mayor Witt, could I add to that answer? Also, impact fee analysis would tell you which projects you can spend money on, because if it's not on your impact fee capital list, you're not allowed to spend impact fee money on it. So if something's happened in the last 5 years that we don't have something added to that list, and we go to spend impact fee money on that project and it's not in our plan, we are then in violation of the impact fee laws. So it's important to keep this up to date for that reason as well.
Okay.
Just a follow-up question, if I may. Is there situations like, for example, when you're getting grant money and different things too? Is it a play on impact fees? Is there grant money that directly related to your impact fees in the way it? I know bonding, that's an important issue.
Not directly. You could identify a project in your facilities plan that could be funded through many options. Part of it could be through impact fees if it increases capacity, It could be funded through grant funding, a portion of that project that's not impact fee eligible, or general fund revenues. So you could, those projects that the city manager identified that need to be on the list, it identifies various financing sources. But what an impact fee analysis does is it looks at projects that where increased capacity is required because of development.
Okay.
Councilmember Adams.
So it looks, the sum of the three numbers, we're roughly $100,000
Correct.
lacking the power study, right?
Yeah.
So you say, are we over budget at the $100,000 without power?
Yeah.
So when power comes in, we're even further over budget?
Correct.
So roughly how far over budget?
What's included in the budget now is we included $15,000 in the water utility fund. We included $15,000 in the electric utility fund. And then we didn't include a line item, but we included as part of professional services in the general fund. We were thinking we could do all these studies for about $50,000.
So we're over double that.
Yeah.
We've seen some pretty stark increases. I won't go off topic, but health insurance this year was horrific.
Yeah.
So,
but for example, as I mentioned, we've also asked for additional services to be provided in regards to the water study. The IFFP report alone is about $13,000, about what we thought it would be. But we've also asked them to update the existing water model, which will be helpful as we measure where reservoirs need to be, where storage tanks need to be, and then also preparing the capital facilities plan, which will identify projects. So it'll give us a pretty good idea of what projects are going to be done over the next 5 years and estimate where that funding is coming from, whether it's coming from impact fees or whether it's coming from C-road monies.
do other cities, or I'll include us, historically, has Kaysville City and or other cities done these studies themselves in-house to spare this cost?
In some cases, for example, the city did the Parks and Recreation impact fee analysis in-house. There are probably some areas that we don't have the expertise, and that would be, I think, water and transportation in particular.
I wonder if that could be explored. I would think, especially if this council was involved, we would definitely shoulder with you to find that defensible. When you said that it was defensible, I appreciated that, why you go outside.
Yeah.
But I think if we kept it in-house and we did it in a proper work session, you'd have a lot of people shouldering that to make it defensible with you. It just seems like a significant overrun on cost, on budgeting and whatnot. And one last question. In the bidding process, did it go out in a sealed bid fashion, or how did it go out?
No.
I know it's in the professional services category. So.
No, yeah, in this case, it's professional services, which may be exempt from the bidding process, and we felt like we could get better value, particularly in the case of JUB and Horrocks, to them because they performed the previous studies.
Okay, so it was just bid out to specific people.
Just
there wasn't 3 bids in each category.
It was requested
just
from
you.
In this case.
Okay, Councilman Garn.
Just to explore Councilmember Adams' question on in-house versus contract, that's always a good question, which provides what you need, because there's no point in spending on something that doesn't get the job done and doesn't protect us. But that being said, assuming that's equal, which is less expensive, then it's an easy choice. But I guess my question is, these studies are only performed once every several years, and I get the cost is going up a little bit, but compare that to 5 years of salary to have an expert on staff. And I'm just asking the question, maybe you could put an in-house employee that has this kind of expertise to work on other things, but what do they do for the 4 years that you're not doing a study?
I think my opinion is, and it goes back to the comment made by Councilmember Page, is it's very important that this become accurate and it becomes defensible. And my recommendation is that we use outside consulting firms for that reason.
Thank you.
All right. All right. What would you like to do with this?
I move to move it to the action list for the next council meeting. I should say the professional services contract for studying impact fee impacts.
May I offer a substitute to that motion, Councilmember Garn? I like that and I appreciate that because we're not taking action on it. Might we bid this out to other companies also, given the fact we're in such a deficit? Is it possible that before it comes back for action, we are presented with bids from at least 3 companies on each category? Would you accept that?
Hold on.
So yes, sorry. So substitute motion would be that before it comes back to us, I request that it comes back to us rebid out with a minimum of 3 companies on each.
I think that actually we didn't have a second for Councilmember Garn's motion, did we?
No.
No. And so
Take
it
a
is
step back. Gotcha.
just a motion on its own, and we would need a second. Okay, no second. All right. So, anybody want to try a third time?
I'll make a motion on on my my substitute. I'll make it an official motion that we take a step back, we bid this back out. It comes back to us with at least no less than 3 bidders on each line item, given the fact that we're facing over $50,000 to $60,000 overrun in budget.
I'll second it.
Okay. It's motioned and seconded. Motion by Councilmember Adams, second by Councilmember Hanson. Any discussion? Councilmember Garn.
Are there this many? I mean, what was the process? I think first, before I could support that motion, I would need to know what the background is. What is the possibility you've got 3 experts to bid, and what was the bid process before? Did they already have an opportunity to companies to bid on these, or did we just choose ones that we have used in the past?
As we mentioned, we felt we wanted to build on the previous studies, the 2012 studies, and so those consulting firms, in most cases, that did the 2012 study, we requested proposals from them. And we believe that, for example, JEB Engineers, they have our water model. They're the engineering firm most familiar with the water model and how that works. And so, like as I mentioned, we went to those consulting firms that did the 2012 study.
And in fact, isn't that the reason the professional services contracts are not subject to the traditional 3-bid process like you would do in a commodities type situation, because you're looking for specific skills and continuity of training, the expertise in a certain area?
That's correct.
If we're into commentary.
Okay. Would you like to comment?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. All I would say to that is, Councilmember Garn and I chaired the committee last year to rewrite the procurement policy. And in it, if you recall in those meetings, we did discuss professional contracts and services and discuss the fact that, do we want to see them run stagnant? Do we want to see them run just perpetual and not bid out to other competitors? And the general feeling of that was that we didn't. So that's simply really the basis for this, where we're facing over double cost of what was budgeted, even well over double. I think it merits taking a moment, if we don't have a deadline by state law to have this done. I think it merits the time to step back, grab the 3 bids, see where we're at.
Maybe just a comment. I think we're in a climate right now which was maybe different than 8 months ago as we were putting the budget together. I think the climate right now is that professional services are running at a premium for pricing.
If I may, it wouldn't harm our current position, though, right? We have these bids, and then we would have others, and we could compare.
Okay. Any additional comments?
I have a comment.
Councilmember Barber.
Thank you. When I looked into this just based off of what was in the packet and consulted with staff, it seemed like these were adjusted based on the time of year or the years. Obviously, they're going to be more expensive study than the when we had them in 2012, but it didn't seem as if these were exorbitant fees, that they were fairly standard. The main question I had was just the power, when will that be? Why is it separate? Should we be accommodating them all together? Because anytime we go back and we have direct staff to go back and find more, there's always a overhead cost to it, whether it's with getting 3 more bids or whether it's coming back with the power. So that was my main question is, what's the cost of doing this separately? Why is the power separate? And then I was also informed that it seemed like these estimates that we had were very fair for the market.
Yeah, we're still searching for a firm that does that kind of work for power utilities. It's a little bit unique. The firm that did the previous work 6 years ago no longer exists. So we've got a few contacts, and we're still trying to reach out to them and get some pricing. And in that case, I think we would bid it out to more than one.
Councilman Garn.
One further question. What is the timeline before we start to incur liability, and how long will it take to go out to bid in this case?
Well, our feeling is we would have liked to have had this done probably a year ago. I mean, we feel like we're a little behind now getting this taken care of. It's probably, once they get started, it's probably a 60 to 90-day process to complete the studies. We were hoping to have the studies completed and ready for the 2019 budget, 20 budget.
And also, do you know if there are, I'm a little concerned with the provision in the motion that there has to be 3 bids. What happens if only 2 companies are qualified or even submit bids? Does that mean that you can't come back to us because there aren't 3? Maybe that's a question on the motion. I don't know who would answer that, but if we are going to go out to bid and the motion passes, would it be considered a friendly amendment to just say you're putting it out to bid rather than to require 3 bidders if 3 bidders don't apply?
I'm the motion maker. I guess it would depend on the style of the bid. If it's RFP, we usually solicit the vendor, right? We go to them. If it's on the open bid process, on the formal bid process, it goes out to the newspapers, and it goes that route, and it goes to the whole public process of all eyes can bid on it. So, I could soften up a little bit and say if we're going to stick to the RFP route, that an official RFP goes out with a nice time frame, or I guess we could go the route, if it makes you feel more comfortable, Councilmember Garn, of going to put it out in the newspaper for bid route. It seems like a substantial amount of money, of the budget.
I just have a question.
Councilmember Barber.
Is that something, these professional services posted in the newspaper, they go out for bid like that? Are we going to be paving new territory doing this?
No, there are several ways to request services. You can advertise in the paper. You can just select certain vendors on professional services that you want to solicit proposals from.
Mayor Witt, could I answer
yes,
that
sir.
too? Any time we go out to bid, we throw the widest net as we possibly can. I find the paper to be less productive in receiving those bids back, but we use websites, we use BidSync, we invite others to let others know. We consult with engineering firms and engineering organizations, both in the state of Utah and elsewhere. We hope to get as many back as possible. My concern would be maybe similar to Councilman Garnes in that this is a pretty specific discipline. Not anybody can do, especially the power, but not anybody can do even a transportation impact fee study. We'd love to get as many bids. We'd love 20 bids or more, but that would be my concern as well. Is who's going to respond to the bid?
Okay, thank you. So the motion that you're proposing is that you put this out to bid.
Yes, that's correct.
Is that what the second understood?
Yeah, but are you taking the 3 out?
What do you think? Do you think
I'd just like to hear just some other prices, just that we put it out like, that's really, I think, what we're all after is,
yeah.
I shouldn't say that. That's what I'm thinking, just so we hear another price to say, is this in the market? Even if it goes to one other,
Yeah, I would say let's not limit it to we just want you to seek one other. Let's put the net out there. And if, but let's put a fair net with a fair amount of time. You feel okay with that?
Okay, so Shane, did you have something to say?
No,
okay.
I think that we'd be happy to do that.
Okay, all right. Okay, so the motion is to put this out to bid. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. All right.
I second that.
Okay. Any other comments? All right. Let's vote. I lost track. Go ahead, Councilmember Green.
Mayor, could I ask one more question?
Why not?
I want to make sure before we do this, and I'm assuming that, it's pretty new to me, but I don't want the city to be hurt in this. And to me, the primary concern is that we find qualified in a bid the criteria. Having done a lot of state contracts like this where I'm looking for professional services, we do qualifications to do the job. And yes, there's some price competition, but are we satisfied that if, we go out to bid, maybe it's a rhetorical question, but we will make sure that whoever we award the bid to has the reputation and stature to do the job?
That's actually in our procurement policies.
You can be assured that the staff recommendation will be somebody that's qualified.
And second,
may not be the low
quick
bid.
question: how long is this going to take, and what liability or risk are we at by delaying it for however long that is?
Well, as Dean said, we'd love to have this done already, but I think he and I started this process going through an RFP process, and then as we talked about it, we said, you know what, is in Water's case with JUB, they have the water model. Let's go back to them and see how much they do this for. This would have been a lot easier discussion if it was a lot less of a bid on their part. But we do believe that what they've given to us is a fair bid. So I think it will delay things. I don't think we're in any kind of a legal jeopardy, though. And maybe we have our legal counsel say that as well or disagree with me. But I don't think anybody's coming to us and saying, you haven't done this in a timely manner, you need to do it. We'd love to have it done yesterday, but I don't think we're in any legal jeopardy by delaying it 2 to 3 months.
Thank you. Sorry.
I concur.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Let's vote. Councilmember Gard.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Passes 5-0. Okay. Where are we? All right. Now, we got off to a bad start, and I need to apologize for being very strict. This is a new format, and perhaps I didn't explain it well enough, and I am sorry for that. Obviously, we have a lot of people here who are very passionate around one issue, but this is our format, and this is what we're using. So I do have a list here for public comment. I think in the future, I want to set aside 15 minutes, but based on the fact that this is a new system that we're introducing you to, I will go through the list, and we will take the people who are signed up on this list. Let me just say that if you do not get a chance to speak, but still would like to speak to us, I will remain after the meeting, and you come talk to me. I would be more than glad to talk to you. I'll also let you know that on the item that I think most people are here to discuss, I got one Facebook message, 2 phone calls, and 1 email. And that is sad to me, that all of you just saved up for tonight. So please, before it's that night, please contact us ahead of time. We would love to hear from you. It is my job to make sure that this meeting is civil, and so we will not have clapping or booing. We will not have shouting out. That is my job. I'm sorry that I had to be strict, but I take my job seriously, all right? And I owe it to you, because you would not like it if you were on the other side, if people were booing at you or clapping against something that you felt passionate about. So I'm going to be very strict about this. I'm very strict on time limits. When it's 3 minutes, it's 3 minutes. You're done. I have to be firm with that, because as soon as I start making leeway for one, I have to make it for another. So 3 minutes is 3 minutes, all right? I will stay after the meeting. If you want to share additionally with me, I will stay as long as it takes, all right? But this is a new process, and I am sorry that you were disappointed and that I didn't handle it better. So please forgive me. It's my first time. I'm really nervous. So, all right. So what we're going to do is Maria Devereaux, our recorder, is going to time for us, and I have 11 names, so that's half an hour, okay? All right. We will have Dean Wall, followed by Margaret Bruff, Dave Davies, Jean Beard, and Sue Tice. So those are the first 5 names. Dean Wall.
My name's Dean Wall. A couple of things I wanted to bring. Welcome the new city council members and the new mayor. We welcome, I like the old ones too, but welcome the new ones. One of the things that I had a concern with is when we're talking about the substation tech job description, he kept referring to a he or his job, and that kind of bothered me. I don't know if there's no women that do that, but it really should be gender neutral. So, and then the other thing is I know it's not on the agenda, and it hasn't been for a while, but I still want to complain about the $20 parking in front of our house, parking permits. I know it's not on the agenda, it probably won't be, but I'm still going to keep bringing it up. So, thanks.
Thank you, Dean. And also, I'll just, before anybody gets up, thank you, Dean. We also will not be answering questions, okay? This is your time to talk to us, and we will be glad to talk to you after. All right, thank you.
I wanted to address the resolution concerning David Adams. And Mayor Witt, since you were the one that prepared this, I want to quote from Kaysville policies concerning your responsibility. Just because you're the mayor of Kaysville does not make you superior to everyone else. Here are some things that makes an excellent mayor of Kaysville. One, you have a friendly relationship with all of the council members and is considerate of their opinions. You have a history of working with your town, city, and neighborhood. 3, extremely familiar with the culture of and the way your town, city, and suburb operates. The bottom line of being a mayor of Kaysville is that you are looked on as a leader to ensure that everything the public needs is provided for. The mayor of Kaysville is looked to nothing less than a leader, and if you shrink this, it could ruin your reputation with the whole city, town, or suburb, and this is very difficult to free oneself of, unquote. There's a rumor going around, and as part of your campaign, Mayor, you promised that you would get rid of David Adams. I am not accusing you of this, nor do I think you would stoop so low as to make such a promise. I only bring this up because I have heard it, and I'm sure others have. Mayor, there's a great lot of people here, and I'm sure 100% of them supports David Adams. I ask you to rescind this resolution. It accomplishes nothing, and it is giving your tenure as mayor a big black eye, even before you get started. Thank you.
Thank you. And also, friends, please no coughing. Let's keep it civil, please. Thank you. Dave Davies.
Lost me here. Incidentally, I did talk to some people ahead of time. And even then, I didn't get the understanding. I think you really messed up. It's a procedural thing, perhaps not intent. You've got the major item on the whole agenda with no discussion. All of the discussion is after the fact. You voted on it after the fact. I don't know whether you guys know. Look, I'm an old history political science teacher. Don't tell me that that's appropriate in any legislative body. That is wrong. You do need to redo it. You made a decision without even hearing the facts. But then, of course, you guys well, I'll be a little sarcastic. Maybe you got all the facts. Look, there's a difference between a republic and a democracy. In a democracy, they want speed. They want things to happen fast, and that's a very easy system to manipulate. That's exactly what you did with this one. See, that moves really fast. Now, a republic has an objective. The republic's objective is to slow the process down so that thoughtful discussion can take place. Now, I would like to suggest this is a republic. I think that's in all of our documents. I got a whole bunch of other things, but you haven't got time to listen to them, but I'll maybe write them up, send them to you, and give you a test after. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davies. Jean Beard? Jen. So sorry.
Hi, I'm going to read mine because I get a little bit emotional and heated, so I'm going to stay on track. I would like to express my concern that the mayor and other city council members have privately conspired to demand the resignation of Dave Adams. Every one of you needs to put yourself in Dave Adams' position. Any of you could be accused of anything at any time. And just because someone's accused of something doesn't mean that they are guilty. Let the system determine if he is guilty or innocent before you pass judgment on him. Dave is not a city employee. He is an elected official. You cannot fire him because you do not agree with him or you dislike him. Let the people who elected him into office decide if he is reelected or not. I personally do not feel that it is your role as mayor to demand the resignation of any of the elected officials or to use threats or intimidation to try to obtain those resignations. Thank you.
Thank you. Sue Tice.
Thank you. Before I start, I'd like to welcome the new mayor and council members and say that I appreciate the changes made to the layout of the agenda. But with that being said, the hypocritical nature of tonight's censure of Councilman Dave Adams is beyond belief to me. Rather than allow the courts to do their work, you have decided to allow him to be tried by the media. I would also say by the court of public opinion, but have you ever polled those of us who live here and voted for him? The articles were posted on social media, but 2 different Facebook pages have received less than 20 responses. I would hardly characterize that as a hue and cry. You also stated in that proclamation that you believe the allegation leveled against Dave may, and I emphasize the word that you used, may, be a distraction to productivity. Seems to me you should see if that becomes an actuality before throwing out the baby with the bathwater. Or is it just that you expect the entire council to always agree with each other and totally eliminate productive deliberation? Based on my experience, and I've been here a lot in the last 9 months, Councilman Adams has been the only one, and I can say that unequivocally, the only one who I have heard ask the tough questions, not simply rubber stamp items based on recommendations, but delve into the hearts of matters. And yet that admirable quality seems to be frowned upon by the good old boys club that Kaysville has maintained all these many years. The most recent example of the good old boys network was when Mayor Hyatt, with the approval of all but one council member, simply rolled over the 2 open planning commission seats to those same people whose terms were up, rather than opening it up to the public as should have been done. Yet another thing Dave Adams pointed out that he was chastised for. Another thing your proclamation stated was that the Kaysville City Council is working to cultivate, engender, and maintain trust in elected officials. Well, I trust Councilman Adams. Let the courts do their work, and if he is found guilty, then put forth your censure. But if he is found innocent, then this becomes no more than a witch hunt. Dave Adams may have his faults, but as they say, let he who is without sin cast the first stone. Evidently, you all think you are without sin, which puzzles me, since I know of at least one undisclosed conflict of interest regarding a recently passed agenda item, as well as many instances where not everyone felt safe in expressing their opinions, views, and concerns, and many situations where members did not properly prepare themselves for public issues, each of which violates the items in your code of conduct, which is what is being used here tonight to censure Dave Adams. But none of those others. I had so hoped that with the new mayor and council people on board, the work would go forward, not backward. I am truly disappointed and disheartened that this has taken place at all, but especially on this, the first day of a new council. Thank you.
Jake Adams.
Before I start, sorry, I'll get it close. I know it's hard to hear back there. Before I start, I'd like to ask the mayor, I'm speaking on behalf of a group, if I could have a little extended time. In the rules that I read for the meeting that was put out, it said...
It's up to my discretion to extend that.
That's what I'm asking,
yeah, I'll give you another minute, so 4 minutes.
I need just a little bit more.
Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Jake Adams. This is really hard for me to do. I am the brother of Dave Adams, and I'm the nephew of Stuart Adams, and I'm the son of Dave Adams. Full disclosure, I work at the Adams Company with my dad and my uncle, so you know. I know all 3 of them. And before I go into anything, I need to make one thing. I want to commend Councilmember Barber for meeting last night. We didn't have much time when we heard what was happening. It did happen quick. And I'm not here to speak about Dave at all. I'm here to speak about the rest of us in the room as people. When I started, I was distraught, and I went to the highest official that was listed on this meeting agenda earlier tonight. It was Stuart Adams, my uncle, who's also my state senator. And I went to him because that's what we're supposed to do. And I talked to him about something. I reminded him that he had taken an oath as my elected official to uphold the Constitution and to uphold decency and the right of people and to hold people. And I told him that I already knew that that was within him. I didn't have to question it. And I said, I know you're faced with a difficult decision tomorrow night, and I can't speak for my uncle's schedule. He was very busy last night running pizza to young men in a ward activity, and he spared me the time to talk, and I thank him for that. But I reminded him that those were his duties, and I came here and I witnessed I'm sorry, I'll put my hand down. I came in here and I witnessed the swearing in of all the new elected officials. And the first thing I heard in the oath that we took, that was taken, was that we would uphold the Constitution of the United States, first and foremost. That we would uphold and defend the Constitution of Utah. And in that Constitution, there's a due process. And I know that there is a code of conduct, and I do not disagree or agree with the code of conduct. I don't want to comment on that. That is a city policy. But I believe that in your city policies, you still need to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America and give a person the right to a due process. I feel that there is a little bit of an injustice there, and I won't speak about it, but I would exhort all of you to look within inside yourselves, because I didn't get a chance to talk to each of you. Look within inside yourselves, and I would exhort you tonight to take the resolution back. You have that authority still. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Hal Anderson.
Good evening. Maria, raise your finger when I got about 30 seconds, would you please? Thank you. Out here on Center Street, down at 6th West, in 1876, a boy was born in a little cabin, a one-room cabin. His name was Hubert Charles Burton. Hubert Charles had lung problems, and as he grew, he became an educator. He couldn't go out and work in the fields and with the livestock. Hubert Charles Burton at 32 became the superintendent of schools for Davis County. Hubert H.C. Burton is my wife's grandfather. He bought a home over on First South in 1917. I bought that same home in 2011. It's been in the family for over 100 years. The Burton family, has been here for approximately 150 years. What I'm saying is I would like to let this council know, with two daughters that live here, an extended family, we're invested in the city of Kaysville. And I would like to see, in addition to talking about metering and the various things that go on here, I'd like to see our concern and interest in people. H.C. Burton, they said his angel daughter, my mother-in-law, how many sons-in-laws call their mother-in-law an angel? My angel mother-in-law said she never heard him cuss. She never saw him angry. He was respected and loved. The Kaysville Tabernacle, he was the bishop there for 16 years when the Kaysville First Ward went from the mountain to the lake and Farmington to Layton. A man of love, a man of compassion. I'd like to back up 100 years to 1776. There were some patriots back on the East Coast who declared a proclamation of independence. And along with that, they spoke of a Constitution and Bill of Rights. Part of that Bill of Rights, number 5, the amendment, no person shall be held to answer, seen here, Mr. Adams. Okay? I don't want any mischief, any of you or any of us, but all of those behind me and all of you up there deserve due process of law. You deserve a presumption of innocence until proven guilty. I don't know how this is going to turn, but to have this mustered around in the press as it has been, to have these meetings where you come in with a censor like this, you have not upheld the Constitution that says that you said you would, you took an oath to, dealing with due process. Everyone deserves that chance and that rule of law. And I would like to see, in the vein of H.C. Burton,
thank you,
some compassion and some decency, and not so much of this nonsense, because that's what it is.
Blake Darling, or D-A-R-L something. There he is.
I'm Blake Darling. I just kind of echo some of the things that have been said, the due process, but mostly I'd like to say something about Dave as the man, not the council man, and I'm sure he wouldn't approve me saying some of these things, and wouldn't like him known, but and I don't necessarily agree with everything Dave does, and and vice versa. But you know, whether you sit on the fence with Dave or not, you know, he's got a good heart, and you know, he's helped a lot of people, and he's the kind of guy that you know would give you the shirt off his back. You know, I don't think that's portrayed here necessarily, and might be sides of Dave that you don't know, and some of you out there that don't know, but you know, he's a very giving individual. It's done in private and quietness, but you know, I just think that needs to be said. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris Snell.
Good evening, Council. It is strange for me to be here after just a couple of weeks ago. I was there, but it's great to be with you. Congratulations on the election of the new members and mayor, but it's tonight. At the risk of being a contrarian voice in the public comment period tonight, I would like to raise my voice in commendation to the Council for the action taken tonight on the resolution to censure David Adams, and to request respectfully his resignation. And I speak that way, and I say that because I don't know, or I didn't know Dave Adams, and I don't know Dave Adams the man outside of the council. I only know Dave Adams the councilman. And I've gotten to know him pretty well over the last couple of years, and it's been a pretty difficult time. As I've thought about what I might say tonight, I thought maybe it would be a good idea to go down memory lane. I'll just hit some highlights. We had Dave Adams ran for office, basically running a campaign alleging all kinds of malfeasance and wrongdoing on the part of Kaysville City staff and Kaysville City elected officials prior to that. And eventually, when he finally got his accusations and wrongdoing allegations investigated by a proper third party, they found that there was nothing there. There was no prosecutions. There were no charges against anybody. It was basically a lot of nothing. He spared no effort to try to smear people. Previous and current elected officials as well as city staff in that process. He didn't seem too concerned about giving them any kind of due process at the time. The truth of the matter is, going forward, there's nothing to say about my experience with David Adams that doesn't start with the combative nature. He's been known to show up at fellow council members' homes late at night and at other times unannounced and uninvited, and typically speaking in a combative mode. And he's also been known to hide behind a bush outside City Hall, where he could eavesdrop on people and confront individuals in the parking lot. That's not to say anything about the mounds and mounds of email communications and text message communications, as well as social media posts that most have been deleted at this point. There was somewhat of a cottage industry, actually, in Kaysville.
Thank you, Mr. Snell.
I support that. So, thank you. Congratulations.
Thanks. That is not in keeping with our civility. I'll take care of it. That cuts both ways. All right, go ahead, Mr. Danzy. All right, that's enough. I have to have order and civility in this room. Nope, you're not on the list. Go ahead, Mr. Danzy.
A simple quote: never let a problem to be solved become more important than a person to be loved. I believe that every one of you up there is probably a member of a certain church that had a certain man die yesterday that said those very words. How many of you took those to heart? It breaks my heart that none of you took the time to get to know Mr. Adams, especially you new members on the council, before you shoved it down our throats that you would censure and kick him off the council. There's nothing that can't be resolved through love and kindness and generosity, and that includes all parties. Pride ruins everything. People need to bury their pride. People need to bury hatchets, and people need to move on. That's the council. That's former council members. That's city members. All of us need to be better people and bigger people.
Thank you. Guys, I am serious. I will have you removed. I'm so sorry. Okay, John Adams.
It's a fun walk to me. All right. Hello. Hey, my name is John Adams. You may remember me from my 10-day run at mayor. Had I known that we could place a curfew on this meeting, I would have maybe considered continuing running. In 1878, there was a conflict ignited between two families in West Virginia and Kentucky over the ownership of a pig. The famous feud, known as the Hatfield and Mccoy feud, continued for many years, resulting in murder, destruction of property, and lives. Grudges are poison. In fact, someone said not forgiving is like drinking rat poison and expecting the rat to die. I have always been a problem solver, a negotiator, and a regular Eddie Haskell, if you will. I've always subscribed to the John Lennon's idea that all we need is love. And I would therefore ask the council and the current mayor that we learn from the past. And I recommend two things. First, forgive and forget past grievances. Cast away grudges and hate and work together. And second, stand by one another in wake of accusations until proven guilty. Mayor Witt, you were quoted recently in the Deseret News as saying if speaking of Dave Adams, is willing to shake people down for money, he is not above taking a bribe. And therefore, no resident of Kaysville should wonder if our city council is taking bribes. And that is really at the heart of this. In this spirit of leadership, I would ask that you retract that, as he has not been proven guilty. And that we step in the right direction, learn from our past, and work together. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, that is the end of our public comment period. Now it is time for council member reports. I believe this is 5 minutes, is that correct, or 3? 3 minutes, all right. Anything, Councilmember Hanson?
I have nothing.
Nothing?
No. Nothing.
I feel like I have to say something. I'm thankful for everyone that came out. I'm thankful for the public comment. I am grateful for the trust that we have, and I have been very informed, and I respect the opinions that came forward. I appreciate the information that came from all sides on this issue with the Dave Adams. He knows that I look to him. I genuinely looked forward to working with him. I still do. I look forward to going forward. I supported the resolution, and I truly hope that whoever it was talked about putting people first, we can as a council. I believe that it is in Dave's hands as he chooses to remain. His seat is available. He's here. He's been respectful. I look forward to working together as a council. I think every comment will be heard and understood. I'm appreciative of Dave's respect this evening, and thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Adams. All right. Okay. Yes, Councilmember
I'd just like
Adams.
to offer gratitude for everybody who came tonight. I appreciate and love you all. And even for those who didn't come in support of me tonight, I appreciate and love you all too. And I appreciate this opportunity that I have had to be in service of you. I know at times it may not seem like service, and I know at times I have not always been the best representative of all of you, but I've tried, and I appreciate the words that you all have shared. I appreciate the love that you've brought to this room, and I appreciate this opportunity, and will continue to work hard on your behalf, to work hard to see that the tax dollars, which is most sacred to you all, is wisely cared for. And then, as you saw tonight, that if we need to take a step back, we take a step back and we slow down and we make sure that we're watching if every dollar is being spent wisely. That's kind of been one of the key things that I have done or watched out for. And I know at times that I haven't been at my best. And I appreciate those of you who are willing to bear with me when I'm not at my best. I am trying. And I appreciate the love and appreciation from all of you. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, motion to adjourn.
Just a
Yes,
comment.
sir.
Did we do the minutes? Did we
That was
skip
in
that?
consent.
Part of the
Oh,
consent.
was it?
It was
Okay.
in consent.
Okay.
Right.
Hallelujah.
Okay. All right. So motion to adjourn, anyone?
Moved.
I'll second.
All right.
Call for a vote there, Mayor.
All right, let's vote on that. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Good. All right, thanks. And I will be over here for anybody who wants to talk to me.